So this short video is probably going to ruffle some feathers, which I hope it does. I'm sick and tired of so many feathers going unruffled. Just kidding. Hey there, I'm GM Jim, and today our topic is the Mercer Effect. And we're going to talk about how I think it's a myth. Kinda. Hold on, don't rush down to the comments just yet. This video is going somewhere, I promise. I put up a slew of posts asking for feedback on YouTube, Twitter, Reddit, and a couple other places. I was looking for DMs and GMs to give me some specific examples of times in their campaigns when they had experienced this so-called Matt Mercer effect from one or more of their players. And what I found was the vast majority of dungeon masters I surveyed said they had definitely heard of this Mercer effect thing, but they had never personally experienced it in their games. And it got me wondering if this is that sort of internet phenomenon like an urban legend where everyone has a cousin who says it happened to them, but it's not actually as widespread as certain loud voices would have you believe. This can happen when a small minority of posts gets upvoted or retweeted a bunch of times and gains a lot of attention. So people start to think they're seeing it everywhere, and they mistake what is a minor problem for an epidemic. Because a few years ago, a handful of posts got a lot of attention on Reddit. Gaming publications started writing articles on this supposedly rampant issue, which basically turned it into a feedback loop. The articles were quoting Reddit, then Reddit was quoting the articles. And every DM out there who does not like Critical Role started to feel like they were going to have to gird their loins against some hypothetical onslaught of newbie players infected with the CR Mind virus. And these posts got so much attention that Matt Mercer himself chimed in. In doing so, he gave the phenomenon legitimacy. Matt is one of the most visible ambassadors of our hobby, so when he talks, people listen. He also seems like a legitimately good dude. Now, I want to be clear, I'm not making the claim that the Matt Mercer effect is false or non-existent. I have definitely seen comments out there from DMs who have given specific examples of players criticizing them for not running their games exactly like Critical Role does. The data suggests it mostly happens at organized play and conventions. And of course, those players need a talking to. But real quick, since I have you, could I get a like and subscribe below? It only takes a second and it helps us both out. Make sure to click all next to notifications. Now I want you to imagine something. Say you'd like to shoot hoops in the park with your friends. Then there's a new person in the group who's never actually played basketball before, but for whatever reason is a huge fan of the NBA. Now let's say after just a couple minutes of playing, this person puts their hands on their hips and angrily declares, "You guys aren't as good as the NBA players." That's not how LeBron James does it. In the NBA, the coaches can challenge a bad call and get it overturned. I want to challenge that last play. What would you do? You would say, "Look, dude, obviously this is not the NBA, and I'm obviously not LeBron James. We're playing hoops in a public park, not at Madison Square Garden." And so if you think about it, that would be a relatively easy problem to solve. Because now we get to the H-Bomber Guy style twist in the video. That this problem isn't really about Matt Mercer at all. And this problem isn't really about problem players. This is a problem about properly setting expectations. I've said this before and I will die on this hill, and that is 95% of the problems at the table can be handled by simply talking about them. Take a stroll through any Reddit post with the question, "How do I deal with a problem player at my table?" And you'll quickly come to see that the solution to most of their troubles is, you need to have a difficult conversation with that person. And I get it. Nobody likes having difficult conversations. I do not like having difficult conversations. I've been playing with one online group for a couple years now, and we all started as strangers and have become friendly over the course of the campaign. But new people come in and out all the time, and we all have a basic agreement not to discuss social issues or politics at the table, because I know from context that there is a spectrum of beliefs in the group. And there have been a couple times where contentious, real-world topics have come up, and I've asked the group, "Hey, can we please keep politics out of it and focus on the game?" Because the one thing we have in common in that group is a love of D&D. As soon as we start talking politics, then we're focused on things we potentially don't have in common as a group, and that is a recipe for developing schisms, which leads to resentment, which leads to a campaign fizzling out. That has to be nipped in the bud anytime it comes up as soon as possible. It's my opinion that too many groups out there don't bother with a session zero. Now, it's one thing if you're playing with close friends and you all know exactly what to expect from one another. For example, you probably already know where your friends stand on social issues, and you know what you can and can't talk about in front of them. You probably know how comfortable your close friends are with certain types of content. But if you're playing D&D with a group of strangers or acquaintances, it's vital to set group rules before launching into a campaign. And I don't mean ground rules like whether or not you get a feat at level 1. I mean ground rules like lines and veils, the X card, whether or not you allow discussion of above-table politics, how much dark horror content or sexually suggestive content you collectively want. This goes double for games like Vampire the Masquerade or Morkborg, where things can get more colorful. And this talk needs to be refreshed anytime a new person joins the group. So I said 95% of problems can be handled by talking about them. Well, what about that other 5%? Yes, sometimes you need to straight up kick someone's ass out of the group. You need to be responsible enough to the group as a whole to never let the bad behavior of one person ruin the fun for everyone. Bullying and harassment should never be tolerated. Those difficult conversations need to be had no matter how much you dread it. Like Mr. Spock says, the needs of the many outweigh the needs of the few or the one, at least in this case. If you're an experienced GM, it's your job to teach the newbies how to act. They don't know. No one is born knowing proper tabletop etiquette. And if you properly set expectations for the group, those bad behaviors should never have a chance to flourish. And another important thing, this is not solely on the GM's shoulders to institute and enforce. Everyone at the table has a responsibility to the group to ensure its success. And that means sometimes having those difficult conversations that you don't want to have. So let me bring this all home with a couple of final thoughts. I would ask you to be civil in the comments below, but if you've watched the video all the way to this point, then you're probably the kind of person who already knows how to be civil in the comments. You're not a troll, you're good people. But if you're tempted to comment below about how this Mercer Effect actually did happen at your table when some punk kid player said, "That's not how Matt Mercer does it," then my question to you is, did you set that player straight? Or did you just get angry at Critical Role for existing and then grumble about it on Reddit after the session? Because if you did not set that player straight, then you're part of the problem. Hi, you're the problem, it's you. Sorry for going into rant mode there, but I felt like it needed to be said. There's so much that's wonderful about this hobby, but there's so much seething and vitriol here too. And that's such a bummer. Anyway, thank you for watching. Now go out there and make your tabletop group strong by focusing on what you're there to do. Play the game, and that's it. This is GM Jim. Thanks for being a part of our hobby.